in to another edition of Gas. I am Gresh. He is Jason Anik.
You were playing everybody and we're winning the game last night.
The head coach is fighting people on the sideline.
What do you got for me?
I know you're a part of Tight Pants Society.
No fucking way is that a gimme, right?
Well, happy April Fool's Day to everyone. Two fools, but no jokes here. Well, there'll be jokes, but we're not going to joke with you and toy with your emotions, everyone. Another edition of Gas, ladies and gentlemen. I am Gresh. He is Jason Anik, fresh from a nice trip to Mexico City with his brother and the great folks at the UFC. Jay, how you feeling? Eddie Montezuma's revenge. Are you okay on the insides?
I survived. It's great to see you, and it's great to be back. You know, and I wasn't intending to go here, but when you went April Fool's Day and then you brought up the UFC, you forced me to tell you a story from, I believe, 2 years ago when John Anik, my brother, UFC commentator, called Bruce Buffer on speakerphone to mess with Buffer on April Fool's Day. Buffer had tried to get John to play poker recently, so John calls Bruce, and he's like, "Hey, Bruce, yeah, online poker last night just got me good. I'm down like 12 G's." And Buffer's like, $12,000? So anyway, it's on social media, but we talked about it with Buff this weekend as April Fool's Day was creeping. But no, Mexico treated me well. My stomach is fine. My brother and Joe Pfeiffer got a little shaken up. Joe Benavides got a little shaken up. But what I will say for me, right, John and I at one point ordered room service, and we ordered a chicken Caesar wrap and a hamburger, right?
That is dicey, brother.
So I started on the burger, and yeah, it was just okay for me, dog, but it didn't taste bad, right? So John eats, half the Caesar wrap. I get to the Caesar wrap. I take one bite, and I'm like, "Oh, that's not going to work," right? Lettuce, whatever it is, right? So John's like, "I'll eat it," right? So I go burger. He goes Caesar wrap. But he kept it under wraps. He wasn't like he wasn't throwing up or anything, but just didn't feel great. And ultimately we just, when you ate, you just didn't feel great. So I came home. My wife said I looked a little slim, but happy to be back. It was a great atmosphere. The crowd was amazing. I could go on and on, but great to see you, buddy. Beard's looking good. Faces looking good. It always feels like too long. 1 week off between talking to you.
Yeah, especially this week, brother, because we got the Final Four. The Red Sox got off to a start. So did Raffy Devers. We have a big movement in the football world as well. But there's a lot of things that the NFL is voting on that Jay and I are going to get to before the end of this show, because there's a lot of things happening in the NFL. I mean, the wussification of the NFL just continues, and we'll peel through it. But the one thing that I think Jay's gotten people excited in New England is the fact that Garrett Crochet will now be a Red Sox at least through the end of this decade. It's a $170 million deal. And for those who don't get into the Fruity Whip headache of how this all works in baseball, this was the most money given to a player with just over 4 years of experience. So there were some arbitration years that the Red Sox bought out. Honestly, Jay, first of all, it's a good move. I'm not going to criticize it. It's the perfect move for them, because they're going to a player early and saying, "Hey, you're not going to have to fight us in arbitration," where who knows, the Red Sox could get whacked as well. Let's agree to get along. Let's come up with a number. Let's lock it in now so we don't have to go through any of that ugliness like we've seen the Red Sox go through with other players. They took advantage of the opportunity that was there. And if you're Crochet, I guess you feel okay about it, that, you're getting $170 million. The opt-out comes in 2030. I just look at it this way, Jay. You got him until the end of the decade. Oh, my goodness.
I love it. I think it was crucial when they traded for him for this to happen. It felt inevitable. I understand his service time, but I thought they were going to have to pay more, if I'm being honest with you. Dude's a horse. Happy to have him going tomorrow after this 1-4 start. And obviously getting this news this early, I like, because you see a lot of teams, whether it's the Blue Jays and the shit show with Vlad Guerrero Jr., he doesn't want it to continue during the season. Feels like he may don a Red Sox uniform at some point. But I really like Garrett Crochet. I like everything about him, and they need him if they're going to bounce back from this brutal 1-4 start. I know it's early, but yikes.
Yeah, and there's the good news. The bad news is the Red Sox are off to a terrible start, and Raffy Devers, even I screwed up the numbers. I had to go back in and look at them this morning to make sure that they were updated. In 19 at-bats, this guy has 15 strikeouts. You and I could do that. Really. Like, I hate to say that, but it might be a little bit higher on the strikeouts, but I have never, so I've been in this racket for almost 30 years. I have never seen a player that is supposed to be good get off to a start like this.
Well, and I feel as though you may have some things to say about his mental game. I look forward to watching him play again. Yesterday, I saw a price in Hard Rock Bet on Raffy Devers not to get a hit, under half a hit, plus 170. Pretty juicy plus number given what's transpired so far. Hope he gets out of it. I tell you, though, I think Alex Bregman is a special leader, and I'm hopeful. By the way, I think he ended both games, made the final out in both of the last two losses.
Yep.
Bregman, but I do think if Bregman, he may be the guy. I know there may be a language barrier, but to sort of be able to kind of loosen this guy up in a way, right? It is a ridiculously small sample size in a 162 game season. So I'm still optimistic. Alex Cora, I trust to maybe get in there and have some things to say. But yeah, I'd be lying to you if I don't think something's going on between the ears.
Well, I think Raffy Devers mentally has always been soft. And I think when he got his big extension, it was a reaction from the Red Sox because they were getting beat up in the court of public opinion. So if you remember, it was at the beginning of a season a couple of years ago. Well, here's Raffy. We're extending him. Hey, everybody be happy about it. But yet there were people privately who were kind of like, oh, man, I don't know if this guy's the leader of your baseball team. And it's clear that he isn't. If this guy mentally cannot handle the fact that, Jay, all they're asking him to do is hit the ball. It's $33 million where they're saying you don't have to worry about fielding right now. Just go hit the ball. And he can't mentally wrap his head around that. Get out of here. This should be simple. David Ortiz would have been mad if you put him in the field. He was such a good DH. And now Devers is wilting. What's he got to do? Seriously, Jay, what's he going to do?
By the way,
Go out and make a couple errors to make himself feel better, and then he can hit again?
Hilarious. Well, David Ortiz, when he did get out in the field, I love the way he flashed the leather, was really good at picking a baseball out of the dirt. I love David Ortiz. But no, I mean, Gresh, it's fascinating. You do a show once a week, right? A week ago, they hadn't played a game. Fast forward a week later, and it's doomsday. I just think the sample size is small. I thought for sure he was going to hit a meaningless home run yesterday when they were down big going into the ninth inning, something like that, right? That would have been more fitting. But I'm interested to see where it goes. I trust in Alex Cora. But there's, for me, it's just too small a sample size. But Cody was highlighting Tristan Cassis, right? He's not looking good either. So either way, there's a lot of fun to talk about in the other sports in Boston, football and basketball. So for me, the Red Sox are off today. Not going to get me chomping all day about this fucking team right now.
Yeah, I mean, right now they are frustrating. And here's the thing. If you start out 1-9, you're almost dead in the division. I mean, really, they gotta figure out a way to turn this thing around and start hitting. And that was a great nugget that Cody put up there. 15 strikeouts for Tony Gwynn in 95 and almost 600 at-bats. I mean, that's just gross. Now, of course, you're comparing him to one of the greatest hitters that ever lived and one of the greatest fat athletes that ever lived as well, Tony Gwynn.
Yeah, I love that. Is very true. Rest in peace. And I will say about Raffy Devers, though, he wasn't, correct me if I'm wrong, Gresh, he was never a ridiculously strikeout prone guy, right? I know we're talking about a small sample, right? But at times when he's been very successful, he's seen the ball very good, and his strikeout to walk ratio has not been horrible. I don't have the numbers in front of me.
No, I do. I do. And since 27, since 2017. The high-end strikeouts for him came last year with 147 in 525 at-bats, but he's about a 270 hitter, and so it all kind of correlates. And
wow, look at that, back to September of last year.
Yeah, I mean, this is he's just in some kind of rut, and I don't think the whole, third base DH thing really helped him. And this is where Devers is going to have to pull the nose up, and he's going to have to do it a lot on his own. I hear you on the face. Like, Alex Cora will make sure the guy won't wilt, but in a way, Bregman has been able to emerge. And maybe, as you mentioned, Jay, that's the thing to really keep in mind for the Red Sox.
Maybe grab him a torpedo bat for Devers. Grab him a torpedo bat. See how that goes.
What do you make of the torpedo bat craze that now everyone is caught on to?
Well, I know there could be a lot of talk about the Bronx Bombers, but did you see what Ellie De La Cruz did last night?
Oh, yeah, 4 for 5 with 2 bombs, and then
Right,
sat
2
down the
bombs.
press conference, and he was like, "Yeah, maybe this ain't so bad."
Right. 7 RBIs for Tito Francona's horse. Gotta love it. I'm interested, right? To me, and we may get to the tush push later, and I guess I have to call it that, but, and the ruling today. But, to me, if you can't beat them, join them, right? So to me, if the Yankees are doing it, take a peek at it. For certain players, maybe it works, but the Yankees are still going to need to beat some teams in the postseason if they want to erase that 16-year championship drought. So in April, are they going to hit some home runs any season, no matter what sticks they're using? Yes.
Well, and I think that some of the guys that are hitting these home runs too, like Bellinger's a pretty good player. There's some good players in there that are also hitting these home runs. I think like in the steroid era, Jay, there was the thought that you could take me or you or Cody, our producer, jam them full of steroids, give them a bat, and then in 3 months they can hit a baseball. That isn't the case. These are guys that are so precise, and when they hit the ball, they're moving the fat part of the bat up and down the barrel. So we're talking about uniquely talented people, and if it were that easy, everybody would do it. So you still need the talent to drive the ball out of the ballpark. Look, I would rather talk about torpedo bats in Big League Baseball right now than like the disgrace that the Oakland A's are. I mean, their broadcast couldn't even get on the air. They got smoked by the Cubs yesterday. It was like 20-3 or something like that. It is a bad football score. It's not exactly been a glorious start for our friends in Big League Baseball. However, in football, they're voting on rules. Jay and I are going to get to that because we need to unpack some of what was said by Mike Vrabel and what a difference in just like that coaching picture. And I know I'm piling on Mayo. Gerard Mayo couldn't wait to get in that photo because Bill Belichick hated it. And now you have Vrabel in there kind of setting the edge. Like him and Dan Campbell really stand out in that photo, do they not? There's just these horses standing there. Like Dan Campbell is such a moose. You forget how big the guy is. But Vrabel did yesterday, Jay, pump up Will Campbell, the tackle from LSU. Vrabel did leave the door open on the number 4 pick, but a full-throated public endorsement of Campbell, just like we were texting during the week that I had heard from some good people that Mike Vrabel was really high on Campbell. And now maybe with some of the public comments, maybe we're starting to figure out who really is in control, and it's starting to feel more and more like Vrabel is at the wheel here.
No doubt, and we'll talk about Mike Vrabel, but the one guy wearing shorts with his hands on his knees, we wouldn't guess that he won the Super Bowl a month ago. Nick Sirianni, the only guy not wearing slacks.
He looks like the dude. He looks like the guy who took the photo and then told his assistant, "Hey, let me get in for one," and then went and slid in, and the assistant took the photo for him.
Hilarious. In the same way that during Super Bowl week, I fluctuated back and forth whether I like the Eagles or the Chiefs. I fluctuate a lot on this number 4 pick. Gresh, you texted us earlier in the week some things that maybe were not public information about Ashton Genty, right? So if you had asked me 4 days ago, Zach Candido, UFC producer, my brother John, and I, we're all talking Ashton Genty getting excited, right? But Will Campbell, as of today, I'm excited about Will Campbell. They talk about this guy in an interview. No one's interviewed about this guy. I couldn't care less about his arms, whether it was Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter, whatever it may be. If Will Campbell's the guy that ends up walking through that door, I'm going to be thrilled. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on Campbell, but also maybe a little tickle on Genty for me.
Well, I know that the Patriots like Ashton Genty a lot, but I think there kind of is a pecking order in New England right now. And I know Mike Giardi and some others have put some stuff out there.
When you say pecking order, you mean in terms of the guys making decisions or the players?
No. The players on the board. I think it's very clear that Vrabel and his new guy are the dudes that are in control. Giardi tweeted out some stuff from Little Elliott saying about Travis Hunter. See what the coaching staff thinks of him, and ultimately they would make the decision.
New England Cable News' Mike Giardi. Love me some Mike Giardi. Go ahead.
It is really, well, you're the one. It's amazing that little,
and my brother too.
Oh, well, I know. He trust me. Giardi tells it. Giardi needs to eat a goddamn sandwich is what he needs to do.
He's looking lean these days?
No, he's taller than you guys, but he's thinner than you. He's thin and spindly is what I always used to call the guys, but he actually played quarterback at like Tufts or something like that, or one of those schools or whatever. Yeah. Jardy's good people for most, but I think he's trash to me.
You love talking smack.
No, I love him, and that's why I'm calling him a gutter sniper trash.
So maybe you do like me more than I think you do, because you talk smack to me sometimes.
Oh, no. But the smack I talk to you is always just sports stuff. Like with Giardi, I'll like send him a text message and tell him that he looks awful or that he's doing a terrible job or something like that.
So you tell him he looks skinny, and does he come back about how physically you look?
Oh, yeah. He's had the low-hanging fruit for so many years. That's why I needle him in places like this. But in terms of Ashton Genty, I think the Patriots have the board like this. If Hunter's there, even though they need a tackle, they're taking Travis Hunter. I think he is the guy that if he's there, they run to go make the pick. If Hunter is gone and they're at number 4 and Will Campbell's on the board, and Armand Membo is still there, which he should be, and the Patriots want to move down a slot or two and still get their guy, I think it could end up working out for him okay. So I know the Shadir Sanders is starting to slide a little bit. There's some real open conjecture as to what Cleveland's going to do. They're sending indicators that Deshaun Watson's done. If that's the case, then maybe they are going quarterback at number 2 when it's all said and done. So, Jay, I think it's Travis Hunter, Will Campbell, and then if it gets down to it, it's a slide down. And maybe if Genty's there and some of the guys you like aren't, then you can end up taking him. But I don't think they love him enough to make him the number 4 pick. I do think Vrabel likes Campbell enough to make him the number 4 pick.
Even if you're not a New England Patriots fan sitting at 4, maybe you're a Jaguars fan sitting at 5, or Raiders, Jets, any of these other teams, Giants. I want to know if you agree with this. I feel like this year more than ever, Cam Ward very likely to be number 1, but starting at 2, right? It's going to be like, like for 2, 3, 4, for everybody, regardless of which team you're a fan of, right? And what I will say, Tim Hasselbeck gave out a comp, I don't know, on Shedeur Sanders, and his comp was Andy Dalton. And so your thoughts on that?
No, I don't see that.
I think maybe in terms of, maybe not in terms of apples to apples, but more in terms of his level of, Andy Dalton did achieve some things in this league, but maybe not a
now I get it.
Like
no, yeah, so
player, but maybe if you're giving Andy Dalton a score 1 to 10, maybe he's a 6.8 all time. So you feel me?
Yeah, no, he would be under solid starter or high level backup type. I got you now.
But for me, if I am the Browns or I am the Giants, I am taking a dive on Shedeur Sanders. I think I said it on the program yesterday. And regardless of what happens with the Patriots, if you're one of those teams, don't you take a shot on Deion's kid, regardless of what he's super accurate. I understand maybe not a runner, but don't you take that bait? Abdul Carter, is he that much of a franchise changing player that you must have Abdul Carter over taking a chance on a QB?
Yeah, I think if you're Cleveland, it's a tricky spot because if you draft quarterback, you could be drafting for the next people who are the general manager and the head coach.
Is that what it always comes down to, is that argument? Gosh, it's so, I don't mean that in a negative way toward you, but you're so right. And gosh, that's fucked.
It is. It sucks. Hey, look in Atlanta right now. Do you think old man Arthur Blank is sitting around on that yacht saying, boy, I'm really glad I invested in all of the people who rallied around each other to not have Bill Belichick come in because Bill would have fired all of them. And
some of those people, I think some would argue, made a brilliant move in drafting Michael Penix Jr. when they did, despite the criticism at the time.
Yeah, I'm not so sure about that.
I know, I'm with you.
I think that's waste. That was waste, man. You rolled the dice and the old man kept you in the job, and then you drafted a quarterback for the guy that might replace you. It just doesn't.
No, I hear you. Sorry. Yeah, I interrupted.
But look, let's not forget that Mason Graham, the D tackle, is in the middle of all of this. And right now, I'm looking at 2 different boards, and both of these websites that I'm on have Mason Graham as the 3rd best player in the draft, at least by rankings. And it's interesting because it goes Hunter, Carter, Graham, Genty, and one that I'm looking at. The quarterbacks don't even show up until number 8 or number 9 in terms of the listing. So if you invert that, and the guys that are 8, 9 are going 1, 2, now we're talking. So really, a lot of people, Jay, say the draft starts with Cleveland. To me, the draft starts with the Giants, because if both quarterbacks are off the board, what are the Giants then going to do? Are they going Hunter or are they going Carter? And if the Patriots like Campbell more than they think they need Carter, or they don't have maybe as high a grade on Carter, now we're talking about maybe the slide back a couple of spots because somebody gets horny for the defensive end. Then the D tackle goes off the board to Jacksonville, and maybe you're sitting there at 6 or 7 with an extra pick and Campbell to draft.
It's so interesting to me. It gets me so excited to talk about it. If those two QBs go 1 and 2, if Cleveland takes Shedeur Sanders at 2, I do believe that and Hunter, I think, will go 3 in that scenario. I think Abdul Carter will be undeniable for New England at 4, as much as they may like Will Campbell.
I'm not so sure, because it feels like the one thing that I have not heard out of the folks in New England is love for Abdul Carter. That's the one thing I haven't heard. Now, it doesn't mean they don't. I'm not saying that they don't like the guy, but I think it is very interesting that I've heard things out of there about Hunter. I've heard things out of there about Genty, Will Campbell. Armand Membo is rising up boards. I think there could be a battle even in the New England war room over Membo or Campbell, which could also end up leading to maybe a trade down a little bit. But I haven't heard anything from anybody about Abdul Carter, and I just look at the way they built themselves in free agency, and if there's one place they've loaded up, it's on what I would call a front 5, where you can have some of those outside backers that can walk up and step up and play on the line of scrimmage. Because of that, I just am not getting any kind of feels about Carter whatsoever. Now, I will say this, Jay, if the Patriots feel like a trade could be coming and they don't want Carter, and there's a chance he could be there, I expect them to start putting the good mouth on him pretty quickly so that they can increase some trade value with that number 4 pick.
Well put. And Christian Barmore in the news, returning from a blood clot, last season, missed the first 10 games, then played 4, but had a recurrence of some symptoms. So that's a big component, right? 42 million guaranteed. I think it was close to, so that's an interesting component there. His relative health. I mean, I think that's a sort of going to be a question mark either way come draft night, but gosh, this is fascinating. And I'm sure Cody in the back room is just as excited as I am right now.
Oh, no question. And he should be. And I know it's a big news day. But
hey, sorry. I got to interrupt you. Did you hear so Mike Vrabel was on with Mike Florio, and Florio was like, all the free agent signings, what's your favorite one? And he's like, the next one. That's his answer. The next one.
I love it.
And it wasn't just, it's not hyperbole. He doesn't have this canned. He truly means it. He's more excited about whatever other guy's going to walk into the room and be just captivated by the man and leader that Mike Vrabel is. And they actually believe that you can envision Mike Vrabel. You can envision the manifestation of the guy hoisting a trophy. He is that gifted a leader. Every word out of his mouth. I love the way he treats people. Go ahead.
No, he's great. And I'm sure Florio hit him with the hard-hitting question right afterwards of the, who's that going to be? So that's what an enterprising reporter would ask, but I won't crap on him because I know I'm a big,
Gresh
I'm a big meanie.
Gresh would have probably irked, not been afraid to ask the tough question and be critical. I love my man AG3.
I'm not a Felger fan, but he kind of got on Vrabel's nerves a little bit, asking him some questions earlier, or I think it might have been yesterday or whatever. So I'll sign up for that. We've got rules to get to in the NFL, but we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about our Celtics because, Jay, when you and I started doing this show, Celtics season was just getting going. But you and I said at the very beginning, listen, we know the C's are going to be there. They're the hottest team in town right now. They've got bona fide superstars. They went through all the ownership stuff, and that's at least part of it is out of the way. But the Celtics beat Memphis last night, 117-103 in Memphis with no Jaylen Brown to wrap up the franchise's first ever 6-0 road trip. They are peaking at the right time. Porzingis looks really good. Derek White is now the all-time single-season three-point record holder for the Celtics. When a player like Derek White is setting franchise records, you know you are on a roll offensively.
Unbelievable. And I think some of those records obviously have a lot to do with how the game has changed. I think Adam Silver pushed out a tweet April Fool's Day that he's adding a 4-point shot. But the Boston Celtics, and we talk about the leadership, whether it's Alex Cora for the Red Sox, Joe Mazzulla for the Celtics, right? I can't overstate this, right? A 6-0 road trip has almost everything to do with him. But I just want to start with last night. So the Celtics are down 7 after 1, and they're just the hungrier team out there, despite having raised a banner, right? So Drew Holiday, right? Like, he makes me so calm as a fan that guy's out there. It's got to be so annoying for the other team, the dick kick that is Drew Holiday, right? Is that like, what is he, the sixth or seventh guy on this just elite team, right? So, and he's going for his 3rd ring, by the way.
Correct.
So Al Horford last night, 26 points, about to turn 39 beginning of June, right? Porzingis plus 29. The difference last night, about plus minus. Porzingis on the floor. He is so unique. I watched a highlight package of him back with the Knicks. He is so elite. And pairing him with this team, Jaylen Brown is my favorite Celtic. And I don't think it's out of the realm of the possibility that this team could actually contend for a title without even a guy like that. That might sound crazy. I'm just pointing to how deep and how good this team is. I think, you could talk about peaking at the right time, whatever it may be. I am so looking forward to watching them accomplish this, right? My brother's gotten to know Joe Mazzulla. He talks about winning another one and then going to a few USC fights. I believe him. I think that Joe Mazzulla, I said it last week, if they are going to hoist a second one in a row, which is so difficult, I don't know if a team's gone back-to-back since the Lakers did it in 9 and 10. Forgive me if I'm making a mistake there, but Joe Mazzulla is going to do it. I'm so bullish on the Celtics right now, and usually I don't take that tone as a Boston fan.
Yeah, it's hard to allow yourself to dive into the pool, right? Even with the Red Sox we were talking about earlier, it's like you can be excited and then you're like, the pool water looks a little dirty. No, it's been clean and clear all year long for the Celtics. And look, to win the East now, they're minus 130, I do believe that says, as my old eyes are stretching there. OKC, we know they're playing well. Here's the thing, Jay. A lot of people were wondering, how come the Celtics aren't close to the number 1 seed? Do you know the Cavs are 60-15 and the Celtics are 56-19? They're only 4 games back out of the number 1 seed, but in showing so much that it doesn't matter to them, it's all about health. And watching the 4th quarter of that game last night against Memphis, that was playoff intensity. You had Ja Morant buzzing around trying to be, there was one point where Tatum got a tech on a call that didn't get fouled, or a foul didn't get called. And then you had JT woofing at the ref, and Ja's standing there saying to the ref, you're going to let him do that to you? You're going to let him talk to you that way? And JT literally looked at the ref and was like, come on, throw me out. Come on, big boy, throw me out. And Ja Morant didn't know what to do, so he went down the other end and committed a turnover. Celtics came down the other end. They get the layup. They started to pull away in the 4th quarter. That's the other thing. The only tiny worry I might have is JT's emotion, but it wasn't Joe Mazzulla. It was one of the assistants that grabbed him and said, all right, let's not get this technical. Let's not get you suspended. Calm down. You can be pissed at this ref all you want, but don't do anything stupid. That's the difference between Memphis and Boston. Memphis, their guy says, no, screw it. I'm going to go to the owner and get the coach fired 9 games before the end of the regular season when we're the number 2 seed in the West.
And Cody put in the chat, Tatum with an edge would be a monster. And I think it's finding the way to channel that edge. I think sometimes that emotion is sometimes a little bit immature at times. I think he's improved it quite a bit. But I got to go back to Joe Mazzulla. I just have to do it, right? I loved Brad Stevens as a coach, but I think there were moments where he didn't have the pulse of the team. I think Ime Udoka is one of the best coaches in the NBA. I was devastated to lose him as the coach, and I think he has the pulse. But I think Joe Mazzulla, you could argue, is a little bit of a combo platter of the both. I think he always has that presence and that leadership, and I think that is the reason that even with an injury, I just think he's going to get them to that right place. And in terms of the 1 seed, if they actually get the 1 seed, it's going to be a bigger problem for Cleveland. But to your point, right? It's like, gosh, man, I like their chances more to go up 2-0 if they start in Cleveland than in Boston. I hate to say it.
No, but this is where Golden State was a couple of years ago. Hey, we don't need to be number 1 seed. We just need to be healthy and playing well. Porzingis end-to-end last night as the rim protector. I think he had 2 blocks in the 4th quarter. And one of them was let me reach around and use all 7'2" that I have to not commit the foul, but end up making the block. And a lot of people look at Tatum and Brown, but the luxury of Tatum and Brown is that it allows guys, and Jay, great point on Holiday, but it allows Holiday and Porzingis to just be dudes.
Yes.
Just go blend in. You know, I don't
Absolutely.
need you guys to be the stars. I need you to be the blenders, and in that role, the pressure is really off of them, because while the ball might come to them for a final shot, those guys are also ready for it. They've been in those moments, and if they don't get it, it's going to Brown or Tatum, and no one's complaining if those guys are taking the shots at the end of games.
Absolutely. And from a Cleveland Cavaliers standpoint, keep talking to me about Evan Mobley, right? But if a healthy Porzingis neutralizes him in more ways than one, and Darius Garland, like the bodies the Celtics have to throw at guys on the defensive end. You can talk about Luka Doncic and his deficiency on the defensive end. I understand, you got guys like Peyton Pritchard that could maybe get attacked, and exposed in certain playoffs spots. But the Celtics are the best team in the NBA, and it's up to them to be the best team throughout the postseason. And you can be sure Joe Mazzulla and all the guys in that locker room want to be better than they were last year. Philadelphia Eagles want to be better than they just were a month ago next time they come around next February.
And I love it that guys like Peyton Pritchard, Sam Hauser, and Luke Cornett don't even come up in discussion. Until you mention Pritchard, you don't even really think about him. But if that's your eighth guy coming off the bench, or if you're in an offensive slump, here comes the microwave Vinnie Johnson in the form of Peyton Pritchard, right? Who's our Dave Corzine? Who's our giant white in the middle? Here comes Luke Cornett.
I love it. Cody, do you know who Vinnie
Johnson is?
Do you know, Cody?
Negative.
Let us know in the chat. He does not. Cody, you gotta look up Vinny. See, I knew, Gresh, this happens to me all the time that you say Vinnie Microwave Johnson, and I know. And maybe our audience is old as fuck like us, Gresh. But man, Cody doesn't know. Cody, go down to Vinnie the Microwave Johnson rabbit hole later today.
Yeah, you could also go maybe for a more modern reference, it might be Robert Ory, who was a guy that you could bring off the bench on a championship team.
If Cody doesn't know Big Shot Bob, the show ends.
We're done. We're unplugging. That's it. Do you know Big Shot Bob, Cody?
That's it for Gas Morning Drive. Save first.
That's amazing. Cody, oh my gosh, I feel so old. Cody doesn't know who Robert Ory is. How many rings does the guy have? How many NBA championship rings? And when did he retire?
Hold on. I got it, because it's the running joke to tie to LeBron. How many rings does Robert Ory have? Not one, not two, not three, not four, not five, not six, but 7.
Got it. He says he knows of Robert Ory.
Ory.
You know what? We're going to have a segment on this show starting next week where we're going to come up with athletes, Gresh. Maybe we'll each come up with 5 of them if Cody has heard of them. And for all you old folks, you'll enjoy it.
Oh, I love it. I'll be making comparisons to left tackles not named Bruce Armstrong, and see if Cody can recognize it. Folks, you have found Gas the Gresh Anik Show. We're here each and every Tuesday. You can find us on YouTube. We're all over Twitter as well. You can get us at The Real Gresh. You can find us on YouTube at The Real Gresh as well. And I do want to, before we get to the votes in the NFL and stuff, I got a couple of things cooking this week. Wednesday, I'll be on the Infinity Sports Network, 3 to 6 p.m. And then how about this on Sunday, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Of all the people they could have picked, it was me to host a Final Four show on ESPN Radio on Sunday. Actually, the analyst, Tim Welsh, former PC coach, was like, oh, put Gresh in there, we'll be fine. So Coach Welsh is going to do it with me, and I think we might be getting like a player from the ACC network or whatever. They throw them in there, fine, mix them in, whatnot. So it's after the Saturday game, so we get to react a little bit and then also look ahead to what turned out to be a very chalky Final Four. Do you have any Final Four thoughts, Jay?
A lot of Final Four thoughts, and that's a great spot for you. That's going to be fun, and certainly I think you'll have some action on the games, which will make it pretty interesting.
Oh, yeah.
I filled out a couple of brackets, which I haven't done for the last few years because, again, the theme of today's show is that I'm old, but I was chalky in every bracket I filled out, almost every one where I expected chalk. I'm really interested to see where this thing shakes out. And during the UFC fight night, Florida was playing. And for those of you that tuned in last week, my brother John has a ticket on Florida, 30-1. He placed, I think, in September and October to win the whole thing. So that's been sort of the theme of our fandom of this sort of whole thing, hedging that or whatever. So we're in Mexico City, and we're just really not in a position to be able to hedge this ticket the way we want. He was able to hedge it in the game they played to get into the Elite Eight, but not really able to fully hedge it. And so for those of you that watch that game, Florida was down 10, almost lost to Texas Tech, but found their way into the Final Four. In terms of what I like moving forward, Gresh, and I'm really curious what you think. I like Duke to win it all. They're minus 250 in this next game coming up against, not against Auburn, against Houston, excuse me. I just like them. The best player, I think they have a way to get it done with Cooper Flagg. I like them minus 250. I'm tying that to the Yankees. I'm tying that against the Red Sox. Duke money line I like. I'm going to be rooting against Duke. So the points I don't know about yet, but I just think Duke is going to, I don't think Duke's losing. I like them plus 110 to win the whole thing. I just don't think they're losing. And when I reference back to John's bet at 31, I think he needs to be really careful finding his spots. Florida's a 2.5 point or 3 point favorite against Auburn. I did play Auburn plus 3, but I'd be lying if that wasn't a little bit of a happiness hedge for my brother. So, Duke and Auburn, I think maybe I would lean that way because Florida has been down. They were down to UConn. They came back down to Texas Tech. I don't know how many times you can do that over and over again, but I think the Blue Devils are cutting down the nets.
Yeah, I was down on Duke going into the tournament, honestly, Jay, because I thought that Cooper Flagg was going to need, an extra 2 weeks maybe to look like Cooper Flagg. And in reality, it doesn't look like the guy even rolled his ankle in the ACC tournament. He has been fantastic and on another level. And I have Houston going all the way. And I'm nervous because I like Houston and Kelvin Sampson has done maybe John Fanta of Fox said maybe the best rebuild job in, the last decade or two. By the way, I got to talk to Fanta on one of my national shows. Good dude. He's got that Chris Farley look, but he really knows his stuff.
I love it.
I dig the dude, but
did you hear Kelvin? Sorry, real quick. Did you hear Samson when someone said Gonzaga instead of Gonzaga? And that was beautiful. You had to love that. Yeah,
that was I'm sure your brother might have loved that too, considering he has to, say Hacienda, Noguera, Primero, Rivera.
Without question. And when John and Zach, the UFC producer, where we're all together, right, talking about Ashton Genty, I'm like in my head, because Zach's a Patriots fan from Boston too. We're there, is it Genty? Genty, right? I'm with my brother. I'm like, am I pronouncing this right?
Oh yeah, it's Genty, and yes, and I tried to be like a pronunciation freak, but on the other side, the Auburn-Florida matchup. Well, the one thing I do hate is that it will validate the SEC in some way. The SEC and their football fans have become the most arrogant folks. And if an SEC team wins the national title in basketball, it's just going to embolden those people. So I hope Duke or Houston wins on the other side just for the sake of talk radio. But to your point, it's a good thing that Florida can come back. They did it against UConn, like you said. It looked like they were down to 2 and the rent was due against Texas Tech. And it took them 2 minutes to go on a 9-0 run and tie that game, I think, at like 75. And that's the other thing, too, about Florida. Keeping pace with them, make them really, really difficult. But I hate to say it, right now, if there's one team I'm feeling going into the Final Four, it's probably Duke.
Yeah, I hear you. So I think Gresh, I think what you need to do for the early game is I think you need to place a larger wager than you typically would, right?
Why is that?
A couple units, because I think you can give yourself a nice little bit of juice either way, right? You can be really feeling yourself after a nice whack on the first game, or you can sort of be really cantankerous after a loss, right? So I'd get aggressive in that first game. I would maybe take Auburn. So that game's 6:09, right? What time do you go on the air?
Well, no, I don't go on until Sunday for this Final Four show. So we're reacting to these games.
Both games.
So, yes. I'm sitting there watching these.
Okay, I misunderstood. I thought you were on in between some of these games.
Maybe we're on the Sunday in between Saturday and Monday.
I got you. All right. Well, so either way, I think you got to go aggressive in the sports book to give yourself some extra juice on Sunday.
Agreed.
That's all.
Agreed. You got to, honestly, maybe the team, if you believe that Raffy Devers is going to snap out of it, because is he going to snap out of it with a single or is he going to snap out of it with a dong? So I just wonder if maybe taking chances on the eventual Devers home run that the odds are going up and up for and pairing it with some Final Four action, maybe that's an easy way to bake in a little bit of juice if you've got heavy leans on the Final Four. Anyway, I digress. Let's get to the NFL, and Brother, God, the new rules. This is what happens every year. We have the NFL. Oh, you know what? Let's touch on this real quick before I start bemoaning the NFL rules. It came out earlier today, Robert Kraft, who controls his whole Patriots Hall of Fame. He could put Jason Anik in as the fan of the year if he wants to, because he owns a damn thing, right? Kraft announced that Bill Parcells will be inducted into the Patriots Hall of Fame. And for those who are in New England, they know that the Patriots Hall of Fame is voted on by the fans. It's normally one person every year. They try to be exclusive. I know Vrabel got in. That started some of the discussions behind the scenes with him and the Crafts. But long overdue, I think, Jay, for Parcells to get in the Hall of Fame, even though people like Cody and others might not know who the guy is.
Well, that's hilarious. Typically, they have a vote, but guys like Thomas Brady and Dante Scarnecchia got in without any vote. It'll be the same for Bill Parcells. I love this. He really, I think, is a hugely underrated part of everything that we benefited from as fans. You know, he flipped the whole script. He took them to the Super Bowl, even though they lost. And had he won that Super Bowl in 97, I think he would be revered in a different way. So I love all of this. I think Bill Belichick would give him a lot of credit. There was a documentary a couple years where they were sitting down at a table together. It was absolutely riveting. Should have happened sooner. Love that it's happening. Can't wait to hear him on the microphone.
I know that Cody put in our chat, Parcells IMO, one of the best GMs in NFL history. A lot of the ways of the Bill Belichick salary cap management and putting together football teams really did start with a guy like Bill Parcells. And Jay, I know that you're a little younger than me, but if you remember the St. Louis Patriots, remember that was the thing at the time, at a time where the Patriots were going to be moved to St. Louis, and you had James Orthwine in there, and you had Victor Kayam in there, the old Razor guy. So there were ownership changes, but then it was, hey, we might be going to St. Louis. So much, in fact, and I have no problem saying this on the air, Zolak, my boy Zoe, has a whole bunch of prototype St. Louis Patriots gear.
No way.
Oh, yeah. He had, I think in his trophy case, he has a St. Louis Patriots hat just sitting in there in the west wing of his house.
And for those of you youngins like Cody, this was a absolute real thing. I remember having thoughts and discussions that we were absolutely going to be St. Louis Patriots fans for the rest of our lives. And we were going to follow that team there. You know, when a lot of people may or may not know, the Cleveland Browns obviously were for the Ravens. Yep. The Browns became the Ravens, right? And then the Browns come back. And if you were a Browns fan and you left with the Ravens, do you go back to being a Browns fan? But yeah, that's fascinating.
It really is crazy times, and Parcells was a big part of keeping the New England Patriots, and it was long overdue and good that the guy ends up getting in. All right, a couple of things from these NFL owners meetings. Number one, and this to me, Jay, screams the NFL owners do not have the balls to ban the tush push. The owners have tabled it, kicking the decision down the road. So it looks like for 2025, the tush push will be in play. I never really expected the NFL owners to wipe the play off the planet. However, I expected them to vote on it. And the fact that they're tabling it means they don't know what to do, or they're not following their instincts on what they think they should do.
So there's a lot sort of to this conversation. But just to sort of go back in 2006, right? It was against the rule to push the ball carrier, right? Even a running back, yep. It was against the rule to push that. They never called that, so they took it out of the rule book, right? So that is no longer in the rule book, right? If that was put back in the rule book, that would obviously eliminate this type of play, right? But the coaches that I've heard that are against it, whether it's McVay or LaFleur, right? McVay says the optics of that play, it looks like a rugby scrum, right? But at the same time, McVay doesn't want to be a hater. And if you can't perform that play like the Philadelphia Eagles, that's your issue, whether it's the personnel, the execution, the calling of that play, whatever it may be. But I do agree. I don't love the optics of that play, and sort of pushing another guy. It doesn't really feel like football to me, right? But I'm not on the side of it that says, oh, let's get rid of it, because the Eagles are executing it. Your thoughts on that play, given you were a former lineman?
I blame Reggie Bush for all of this. I go back to 2005 at Notre Dame when Reggie Bush put pushed Matt Leinart into the end zone in that 34-31 win. If you remember that, that's what started really the discussion of the can you push people in. Then the NFL tried to jump on it, and we know their rule. Look, I think there's the old adage of find a way to stop it. I know what I would do. I know how I would coach it up to try to stop it. But at the end of the day, it's about the linemen, not the people pushing the running back. And that's the part that I think it is kind of being missed here. You can stop this play. You just have to have a lot of beef and good technique up front. And I think this play will ultimately go away. Doesn't it feel like the momentum is building? No one just has the balls to pull the plug yet.
I agree, but I think that's very well put. Jason Kelsey run that for a long time, future Hall of Famer. So I think your point's very well taken about that those linemen do matter. But I do agree that it doesn't really feel like a football play. And that's why I sort of ultimately think just eliminate. If you can't push anyone from behind, it really does eliminate that rule. And I will say too, even when you see it in the field of play, yeah, if it's your team, sometimes you're like, oh, look at these brawlers. You got seven guys pushing a guy. But it does feel a little gimmicky, even in open space to me. So I wouldn't mind it going away. But I think there's also a lot of like football guys that don't want to be the guy that says, oh, you know, well, you got to stop. They want to be the guy. Oh, you got to stop. You got to stop it. They don't want to be the guy that goes the other way.
Think of this, Jay, real quick. How many times did we see Bill Belichick take a rule and manipulate it and make it work for him, right? Like, if you remember the Baltimore playoff game, Shane Vereen's on the line of scrimmage and, you know, Baltimore couldn't figure it out and then they complain. I think there are a lot of coaches in the NFL who look at this and say, hey, man, you found a way to work within the rules and build a better mousetrap. Now we've got to do it, or we've got to find our edge on the defensive end to sort of turn around and stop it. And I know I jumped in on you, but I think for a lot of coaches, it is the don't take away my right to kind of blur the lines with the rules a little bit. I'm a big NASCAR fan, and they say, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. And there are drivers who say, hey, if my crew chief doesn't get suspended or slapped along the way, I'm actually kind of disappointed because I'm wondering, is he really pushing the lines of the rules that you have in any sport?
Well, fair. And right, in terms of holding, right, if you're not using your hands a little bit physically in certain sports, basketball, football, whatever it may be.
No doubt.
So one rule that did get passed that I'm very interested to hear your thoughts on. The football now moves to the 35-yard line after a touchback. I have a lot of I feel like I have a lot of differentiating thoughts on this. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, they've screwed up the kickoff. So because the NFL ran into the, oh my God, we can't have people getting concussions on kickoffs. Everyone's looking at it now. It was, well, let's just try to eliminate it. And now the pushback from fans is you've gone too far. You've completely screwed it up. So this is the, well, you know, we'll make it punitive for people that have kickers that are really good. You know, you could just monkey with where the ball is kicked from and maybe get some of the same results instead of making a touchback a bad thing. Because now if I'm a returner and I know that ball's going to hit at the 5-yard line, I'm just getting out of the way, letting it roll into the end zone, take the automatic touchback, and now I'm getting more free yards. So I know they put out all these, you know, fakakta numbers of, well, it'll increase this, it'll increase that. It's going to increase two things, Jay. Kickers trying to hit balls like lob wedges off of the tee, and returners that are going to go, nope, I'm just going to let this thing go, and it'll go right into the end zone, and my team will get a big advantage.
When I first saw it, I was like, oh, no. And now I'm like, oh, yes, right? The 35-yard line, not much of a difference other than kicking it out of bounds, which gives you the ball at the 40, which is hilarious to me, that 5-yard difference. But I will say there were often times where Bill Belichick was almost ahead of the curve, really trying to hit the lob wedge to the 10-yard line to sort of capitalize on that. So for me, the fact that, do you agree with this statement, Gresh? Kickers will be trying to avoid touchbacks all the time.
I kind of think so. It really depends on the coach, because if you're a bad team, what's worse, allowing somebody to start at a 35-yard line or trying to kick the ball down to the 5 where a talented returner might end up slicing and dicing you anyway? So I gotta text Rizzy on this and be like, dude, what do you make of this? Because, a special teams coach in the NFL will know all of the dirty data as to why the NFL did this.
It's so contradictory, right? Even if you line these guys up differently so they don't get a running start to be able to sort of torpedo a guy, as we use a term from the baseball conversation, but the fact that they are going to have all these more returns and as we try to sort of avoid injury is hilarious to me, even though I like it as a fan. But I'll tell you right now, there's no way, one first down, you're at midfield. There's no way you give the team the ball at the 35-yard line. I think it's a whole different challenge, I would think, for a kicker on a regular basis to sort of hit that lob wedge, as you said.
Well, and it's also, what's the philosophy of the coach going to be in certain situations? Because if say you're in a close game because your offense hasn't been great, but you're up, say 16-10, where a touchdown could kill you, but the other team ain't doing F all or nothing on offense. Well, fine. Maybe I will kick that thing out of bounds and live to just fight from there, knowing that the field goal doesn't kill you. I think what this does, Shay, it forces coaches to have to think about scoring and how an end of game is ultimately going to play out. Do you go for 2 to make it a 4-point game, knowing that your guy is terrible at, say, the pooch kicks, but he can boom the thing out of the back of the end zone? Do I go for 2? And if I miss that, now I'm not maybe kicking it off out of the back of the end zone. You see what I'm saying?
Yes, but for me, right, I think you can take so many chances as a kicker, right? If your job is to kick it out of the back of the end zone, right? Mm-hmm. Knowing that it's a 5-yard difference if that ball goes OB, I'm playing around with different trajectories of the ball, hitting some bouncing balls that could be really difficult to field around the 15 or so, because if it goes out of bounds, you're not right. I mean, I think that, is your coach really going to be pissed if you take a shot and the ball's at the 40 instead of 35? So I think it's going to be, I like that the NFL is bold. Cody, what do we got here? I can't see the top, so I don't see what we're looking at, but
no,
it looks like a lot of touchbacks.
These are the kickoffs, I think, by individual team this year, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, the locations of
landed in the end zone
from AFC teams. Yeah, most people just boot it out of the back. But again, the NFL also told the teams, essentially with the rules they put into effect a couple of years ago, that they wanted to eliminate the kickoff. And they never thought about the way the fans would ultimately react to it. Now, they wanted an onside kick modification, and apparently they're going to kick that down the road, and they'll talk about it in the May meeting. But again, this is the worst thing. Now, I'm not talking about this particular 35-yard line rule, Jay, but in the last 5 years, the NFL has had a lot of things go their way and go right. The one thing they've done is they've completely screwed up kickoffs because instead of educating people on concussions, they thought it was easier to just say, well, let's wipe this dangerous play out of the game. And it doesn't work. It hurt the game. And I don't know if you've seen this yet, dude, but the UFL, they're using the spot the ball technology, and it is fantastic.
I love it.
It's amazing. Here's another thing that the UFL is doing too, that the NFL should adopt. You want to increase scoring, do what they're doing on the extra points, and you can have a 1, a 2, or a 3-point play.
Wow.
After a touchdown. Now, I think it's like the 5. I want to say the 3-point play is from the 10, and then the 2-point play is from the 5. And then if you want to run a 1-point play, it's like a traditional 2-point conversion in the NFL.
Yeah.
So,
and if you're asking me if I want the NFL to do that, it's like a fucking clown show. No, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, which is how I feel with most of the NFL. But I want to ask you,
it's coming. You know what's coming? That will happen by 2030, and the 4-point field goal is coming.
The 4-point shot in the
4-point
field goal.
The 4-point field goal will be coming to the NFL soon enough. Mark my words.
Interesting. So I want to ask you, teams that win their divisions in the NFL with a 8-9 record or whatever it is and host a playoff game, a lot of rumblings. Another team goes 13-4 but doesn't win their division. They should go there. Don't you agree? That's a long conversation, but I just want your thoughts quickly. Don't you feel as though unless something changes with the schedule, the division winner should still host a postseason game, given that you're not really playing the teams in your conference necessarily? Go ahead. quickly.
Divisions need to matter. End of story.
Yeah. Okay. We're on the same page there. So I want to just circle back to the Red Sox real quickly. So because I think it's very interesting when you host a weekly show, and it does feel like 3 weeks between all these shows, right? But it is so interesting how, even though I say, oh, small sample size, right? I'd be lying to you if I think this isn't a really sort of great footage there, sort of a fumbling start. And John and I have talked so often about April, and you've made some points even earlier about how important these games are, right? If you have a good April, you can sort of coast for 4 or 5 months and still be in the picture. But 1-4, to your point, if that doesn't quickly get back to 500, I think April is so important, and I used to not feel that way. So while it's only 5 games, I think they need to get it right quickly. Your thoughts overall on sort of what you've seen in Boston? They can't lose today.
Here's the thing. You can't win it in April, but you can lose it in April. And that was a big league manager who said that to me. So that's the real worry, is that are you going to play yourself to a point to where you're 8 games back in the division after a month and you just have no chance? You're in quicksand and you can't get out, and you're automatically thinking about the wild card. But you know what? What's really interesting, I know Cody is cherry picking some of the tweets that are out there, but this is the Red Sox reality right now. And I hate to say that for them, but it is people mocking them, making fun of them. You asked me, I think it was 2 weeks ago, are you feeling the, hey, here we go, it's Red Sox, are you feeling it? And I was kind of like, I don't know. And now this has been the, oh boy, this is interesting in another way, because if they only win 7 games this month, it's done. It is done.
No chance to win the very well is walking out that door after 1 year too.
Good point. Good. It's an excellent point that there are people who can get up and walk out the door. So we're going to learn a lot about Raffy Devers individually, but we'll also learn about the makeup of this team as well. Jay, there was a reason there was so much talk around the Youngs who stayed on the roster and the Youngs who went to Worcester, because I think a lot of people see that there are going to be some pages that need to be turned. And I know the guy came up earlier, Tristan Casas is going to be one of those guys. He ain't going, I don't think he's going to be around here for very long. And that's somebody that I think they're going to move on from. And maybe that's the way to settle Devers down a little bit. I know he didn't want to make the switch, but again, I referenced him earlier. That's where you call Poppy and say, listen, I know you're getting married for the 13th time or whatever, but can you help me out and talk this guy off the ledge a little bit and maybe get him to realize first base ain't a bad way for him to go?
Absolutely. Too bad Cassius is shit in the bed too, because I'd love to see, he got to add some knocks, maybe make himself a little more attractive on the market.
Oh, he's a wackadoo.
Yeah, you said that.
Casas just doesn't. He I don't know. To me, a guy like Tristan Casas doesn't get it yet, and he's one of those dudes where I just I don't know if he ever will.
So one more thing I want to ask you before we get out of here,
please.
Jimmy Haslam, owner of Browns, quote talking about Deshaun Watson. We took a big swing and missed with Deshaun. We thought we had the quarterback. We didn't, and we gave up a lot of draft picks to get him. So we've got to dig ourselves out of that hole. It was an entire organizational decision, and it ends with D. Haslam, his wife, and me, the co-owner. And I. So hold us accountable. So I know we talked about the draft a little bit earlier, but I like that they came out and were brutally honest about this. And got 2 more years, $46 million each year. That doesn't feel all right. Great. 60% of the way through. It is what it is. I think for sure you take Shedeur and you make Deshaun Watson collect that $46 million and sit right behind him. It just is what it is. Years fall off the calendar. Go ahead.
Well, there's 3 things that stand out to me. Number one is I do think Watson is kind of cooked. He's going to work his way back because he's going to try to earn his money. But if you're the Browns, you need to turn the page. If I'm D. Haslam, I'm telling Jimmy, don't push your shit on me, buddy. This was your call. Like they always do that all the time with the whole, well, it ends with me and, spouse number 3 or whatever in the world it is, right? But this was Jimmy Haslam's call, and everybody knew it, and everybody, when he wanted to make dopey owner syndrome. Jay, I think I've run through this with you, have I not? Dopey owner syndrome, just quickly. Whenever you're somebody who gets your hands on a team for the first time, you're a dopey owner and you make dopey owner mistakes. Hence, dopey owner syndrome, because Jimmy Haslam, I get to drive the bus now. What do? Go spend a bunch of first-round picks and hire a guy who can't keep his wang in his pants. So, like, people make mistakes like that. David Tepper screwed it up in Carolina twice already under his watch. It's just what these guys do. And I love this. When Jimmy says to hold him and D accountable, how exactly do we get to do that? That's the thing.
It's funny.
If you give up your seat in an NFL game, there's another ass waiting to jump in those 18 inches.
So did you watch any of the UFC Fight Night?
I did, friend. I did. I watched a lot of it. A little bit of a late arriving crowd, I thought. Early fights didn't pack them in, but boy, when they got there, golly, they got there in a big way. And Brandon Moreno is just one of the best fighters I've ever seen. And I know that he's in a division that I think is starting to kind of get forgotten by some fans. I think, Jay, I got 2 young fans in my house, and I know they like the bigger guys more than the smaller guys, but they put on a hell of a fight. Ursig, that fight was a little slow for me. I didn't think Ursig was as aggressive as I thought he would be, but there's just something about Brandon Moreno where, he looks like the kid that you're going to connect with on a Zoom to play video games with. And he goes in there and goes 25 minutes and handles business. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I think you put it well in terms of Ursig's lack of aggression. Felt like he was sparring out there. I felt like he had a lot of windows where shots were getting through, but he wasn't following through with any of his strikes, trying to trying to kill the other man. You know what I mean? You're in there, fight to the kill. Kenny Florian, Dominic Cruz, these guys talk about being in there to kill the other man, not helping the guy off the ground, and not, a little too happy after a loss for some of the guys competing Saturday night. But it was fun. That Mexican crowd really made it feel big. DC made a great point. He said he felt like the crowd almost was better than the fight in a way. They almost did more than the fights deserve. So I thought that was an interesting way to put it. But it was a fun night. I always love traveling, being on the road, had some great tacos. It was a good time, Andrew.
Dude, that's the video that I saw and I wanted to ask you about. It was you and John in DC going to what was that, on the side of a road or something?
Taqueria Orinco would be where that place is unbelievable. Best meal I had there. The chicharron was unbelievable. The taco pastor, just unbelievable stuff. It was great. It was fun. I didn't even realize DC was taking that video, but DC was fun in Mexico City. You can be sure we had a good time.
It was the videos were good. I know that you all were digging in on the tacos.
You see the line here, though. That's what I put out there. Dude's holding up the line. DC's asking people in the line what's best, and this place is like the spot. And it opened at 1:00. We're out there at 12:45. At 12:58, DC's trying to get the chain. He's like, hello. So he was all business, but he's making everybody laugh. It was fun.
That looks pretty cool, I gotta say. And you're just there watching all of this tomfoolery going on. Did you go behind the counter to get a photo?
Well, the restaurant's sort of in the back, so I was waiting for these guys, almost to the point where I was about to go apologize to all these other people in line, because sometimes these guys sort of running their own show. But what I will say, and I know we're going a little over here, John and DC have spent so much time together over the years. And so when they're doing this, a fight night, right? It's really interesting because it's not a pay-per-view. John had nothing on his calendar on Friday because it was all in Spanish. All these press conferences were in Spanish. So we had a great time just being able to go out and do things. And then they get on the broadcast, right? And I missed it on camera and I wish I had it, right? But literally within 30 seconds on broadcast, they're reaching across Laura Sanko, dapping each other up. You know what I mean? So it's a very unique feel. At one point, DC comes over after doing a hit and I'm just sitting there and he's like, I'm so good at this. I'm just so good at this. Talking about broadcasting, right? So it was really fun to it felt very different sort of being in a fight night. They all had a little bit more time and the fight start at 2:00 local time. So it's not this little thing. Here's John talking about 15 fighters, 30 fighters, right? But anyway, it was fun. Spent some time with Buff. It was a good time.
That's pretty cool. By the way, Buff's jacket was fire that night. That red jacket, dude.
Oh, no pun intended. And nothing like watching Buffer warm up. Nothing like it. 67 years old.
Oh, the whole stretching and stuff like that. And yeah, we see him whenever.
I don't think he loves when I post that on Instagram, but that's his gig. You know?
Well, he get mad at me too, because I've done the same thing. When we went to UFC 300, the guy was practically doing jumping jacks in the damn octagon trying to get ready. So I like zoomed in and tweeted in on him on the whole, I think the first fight come out, and he's like dancing to the music outside the ring and stuff like that. Yeah. It was wild. So Buff puts himself out there and then turns around and yells at you. I'll be the Larjo to stand right behind you and tell Buff, no way. Look at that.
Back up against the cage, Buff. Get it.
Yeah. He's got to get those groins stretched out.
Oh, no question about it. But it was a good time. You know, it was crazy. We're running outside at altitude. That was nuts. You know, you literally like after a few minutes, you just, you know, you're 7,500 feet above altitude. So John like dusted me the first day on the treadmill. I'm like, what is going on here? Like, and then we go outside and it was a different story, but it was fun.
I was going to make a joke of what did DC do, but nevertheless, I know that he's not running with you guys.
No,
nor would I be.
Maybe some calisthenics in the room, and Plinio Cruz there, the man. Another story, Poeton, right? So as you all know, John Anik and I know we're way off the rails here, but John and I we're identical twins. We look a lot alike. So I come downstairs at one point in the hotel, and the only man sitting there is Poeton, about 100 feet in front of me. Just Alex Pereira, right? He's looking at me like I'm John, you can be sure. Probably has no idea I exist. And so I'm like, all right. So I just sort of walk down the stairs, and I'm like, you know what? No, I'm going to go talk to Poeton, right? I know we don't speak the same language. I'm going to go talk to Alex Pereira, right? So I go up to him, you know, hug. I tell him it's an honor, right? We give a hug. I think he recognizes it. You can be sure I'm not trying to take a picture. Then we do another hug, fist bump. Shama. That's
Shama, baby. He's awesome.
And then we were gone, but he's the man. But Plinio wasn't around. Had he been there, it might have been a different story with some translation. But
there you go.
It was fun. I hadn't been to a fight night. And most of the time I'm going to these pay-per-views. So I turned around at one point and I said to some people I was with, I was like, is this, are we going to get Teenage Wasteland here? Do they do that on fight nights? I was embarrassed to ask, but it was fun.
And this kind of replaced the Seattle trip that you guys were going to take when the Dom unfortunately got hurt and had to back out, right? Now I know John was working it.
No, well, John was not working Seattle. Seattle was going to be right. Oh yeah, not working. Like you said, that we were literally just going there for Dom. But I did get to watch these fights with Dom, which was pretty fun.
That's cool.
Yep. But Dom knows John really well, so it's honestly sometimes like having a third twin. Dom's kind of on my side. He's giving John a hard time about his focus and seriousness, so we have a good time.
When your third brother is ever in the mix with these people, how does he get to commingle with them very often, or is this more, hey, this is the twins world?
He's a different cat. He had the opportunity to go to dirty boxing and he abstained. It would have been a nightmare for him. He would not have liked that. Now he's a sports fan. He's a Boston sports fan. He's a good man. He's a nice man, but maybe a little more introverted, but the whole scene, but he is not a fan of mixed martial arts. You can be sure you can count on one hand the number of times he's watched John's work. Do you know what I mean?
I like it.
More likely to be tuning into Gas Morning Drive.
Oh, there you go. We got a lot of people tuning into Gas Morning Drive who will send the DMs and ask questions, and we thank them. People that you know way better than me. But that is it, folks. We're out of here. I think we've hit everything that we wanted to hit today. A little bit of Final Four, NFL rules. Oh, Steph Diggs. I forgot to ask you about Steph Diggs coming in.
And on last week's show, wish we had cut it up. We talked about the upside, and then we get off the air, and then it happens. But yeah, I'm super excited, and I don't think the full contract terms have come out yet.
They have. They have in there not. They have in there not what they thought. It's really only 18 million guaranteed, 26 million guaranteed in part because of injury. It's short money relative to today's prices.
But I could go on and on. He wants to win. 31 years old is not ancient. And I think there's certain guys that are going to be able to play into their 30s. There you go. I like that.
Just don't be a dick. That's all I ask. Just, don't infect other people. And I hope there's enough that I think anyway, Jay, that there's enough on the roster to make sure that he wouldn't metastasize.
Cody says we need some dicks. I agree with that. But he's not a dick. And just because he wants to win, and maybe him getting the football sometimes crosses over with winning. You got Mike Vrabel at the helm, and Stephon Diggs put in his Instagram story the next day like a picture of Vrabel.
Oh, I love it. He did a great job with the Instagram story, and I think Diggs comes here a little humbled, which I think needed to happen. All right, that's it. We're out of here. We've given you everything we can today. Tell all your friends about Gas. Make sure you subscribe at The Real Gresh. That's where we are. You can find us on Twitter Live. You can get us on Insta as well, each and every Tuesday at 11 a.m. I am Gresh. He is Jason Anik. Great job by our guy, Cody Merrow. We'll see you next Tuesday.
Appreciate it.